By Thornton Wilder, produced by the Wheatley Theater Company, directed by Mr. Rick Wilson, and stage managed by Emma Pack. It is our first live production in over a year, and we are ecstatic to be back. On behalf of the Wheatley Theater Company, we politely ask you to turn off all flash photography and silence your cell phones. In it, you will see Wheatley Theater Company Senior Company members, Om Shah, Jeffrey Melnikov, Kajal Kapoor, Sean Killen, Tika Prajapati, and a bunch of other talented young actors. The name of this town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line, latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. Today is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. The sky is beginning to show some streaks of light over in the east there, behind our mountain. Morning star always gets wonderful bright the minute before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I'd better show you how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Way back there is the railway station. Tracks go that way. Polish towns across the tracks and some Catholic families. Over there's the Congregational Church. Across the street's the Presbyterian. Methodist and Unitarian are over there. Baptist is down in the hollow by the river. And the Catholic Church is over beyond the tracks. Here's the town hall and post office combined. Jail's in the basement. Ryan once made a speech from these very steps here. Along here's a row of stores. Hitching posts and horse blocks in front of them. The first automobile is going to come around in about 5 years. Belonged to banker Hartley, our richest citizen. White House up on the hill. Here's the grocery store, and here's Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody in town managed to look into those two stores once a day. Public school's over yonder. High school's still further over. 9:15 mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock afternoons, the whole town can hear the yelling and screaming from the schoolyards. This is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. This is the back door. There's some scenery for those who think they have to have scenery. And this is Miss Gibbs' garden. Corn, peas, beans, hollyhocks, heliotrope, and a lot of burdock. In those days, our newspaper came out twice a week, the Grover's Corners Center. And this is Editor Webb's house. And this is Miss Webb's garden. Just like Miss Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflowers too. Right here is a big butternut tree. Nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it, as far as we know. The earliest tombstones in the cemetery up there on the mountain say 1670 to 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights and Gibbses and Percys, same names as around here now. Well, as I said, it's about dawn. The only lights on in town are in a cottage by the tracks where Polish mothers just had twins, and in the Joe Kroll house, where Joe Jr. is getting up so as to deliver the paper, and in the depot, where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 5:45 for Boston. Naturally, all around, there have been lights on for some time, what with milk-ins and so on, but townspeople sleep late. So, another day's begun! There's Doc Gibbs, coming down Main Street now, coming back from that baby case. And there's Miss Gibbs, coming downstairs to make breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital's named after him. Miss Gibbs died first, long time ago in fact. She went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there. Pneumonia. But her body was brought back here. She's up there in the cemetery now, in with the whole mess of Gibbses and Hersey's. She was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. And there's Miss Webb, coming downstairs to make her breakfast too. And that's Doc Gibbs. Got that call at 1:30 this morning. And there comes Joe Kroll Jr., delivering Mr. Webb's sentence.
Morning, Doc Gibbs.
Morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick, Doc?
No. Pair of twins born in Polish town.
Do you want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything serious gone on in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My school teacher, Miss Foster, is getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
I declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course, it's none of my business. But I think if a person sets out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. It's only like you said. It always tells me when it's going to rain.
What's it tell you today? Going to rain?
No, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Knee ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
Want to tell you something about that boy Joe Kroll there? Joe was awful bright. Graduated from high school here, head of his class. So he got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated head of his class there too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time. Going to be a great engineer, Joe was. But the war broke out, and he died in France. All that education for nothing. Get up, Bessie! What's the matter with you today? Here comes Howie Newsom, delivering the news. Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
No. Pair of twins over to Miss Gore's slot.
Twins, eh? This town's getting bigger every year.
Going to rain, Howie?
No, fine day. That'll burn through. Stay, Bessie.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. Bessie's all mixed up about the route ever since the Lockhart stopped taking their quart of milk every day. She wants to leave him a quart just the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Is he? Seems you're late today.
Yes, something was wrong with the separator. Don't know what it was. Doc?
Howie?
Children!
Come on, Bessie!
Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple hours of sleep, can't you?
Mrs. Wentworth's coming at 11. I suppose I know what it's about, too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
I told you I won't get more than 3 hours of sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I wish I could get you to go away and take a rest. I think it would do you good. Emily, time to get up. Wally, 7 o'clock. I declare you've got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. George!
George! Look sharp!
Yes, Pa!
Don't you hear your mother calling you? Guess I'll go upstairs and get 40 weeks.
Wally, Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come up and do it myself.
Ma! What dress shall I wear?
Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and he needs his rest. Now I ironed the blue calico for you special.
But Ma, I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up with you.
Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Mama, George talks so bad me.
I'll come up and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
We've got a factory in our house. Hear it? Right? All right, gentlemen. If you are a fortune.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth. That's a fact. Put away your book, Wally.
Oh, Mom! By 10 o'clock, I got to know all about Canada.
You know the rules well as I do. No books at the table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
Well, I'm bright too when I'm looking at my stamp collection.
I'll speak to your father about it once he's rested. But it seems to me 25 cents a week's enough for a boy your age.
Oh, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you'll spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to so much money. She's more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradually.
Now, dear, I think it's good to spend a little every now and then.
Mama, you know what I love most in this world, do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Mama, there's someone's bell.
I gotta hurry. Walk fast, but you don't need to run. Wally, pull up your pants at the knee. Stand up straight, Emily. So, Mrs. Foster, my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
Yes, Mom.
You look very nice, Rebecca. Pick up your feet.
Goodbye.
Here, tick, 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 tick. Here, tick, 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 tick. Go away, you! Go away! Here, tick, 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 tick. What is the matter with you? Fight, fight, fight. That's all you do. You don't belong to me. Where did you come from? Oh, don't be so scared. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Well, I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I wasn't sure if I'd go to choir practice tonight. It wouldn't be any use.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't do that and stay on the key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these beans.
Oh, let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate him, but I noticed he was getting down all winter.
Now, Myrtle, I've got to tell you something. So I don't tell somebody. Oh, burst!
Why, Julia Gibbs.
Give me some more of those beans. Myrtle, one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. And at first I thought he was a patient wanting to see Dr. Gibbs. And he wormed his way into my parlor and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandma Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
He did. That old thing. What, it was so big I didn't even know where to put it. I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know? $350. What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, it sounds crazy, I suppose, but I've been promising myself that if we ever had the chance.
How does the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat about the bush a little, and I told him that if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it, that I'd make him take me somewhere.
And what did he say?
Oh, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said. It might make him discontented with Grover's course to go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years he takes that trip to the Civil War battlefield, and that's enough trip for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs being one of the greatest exorcists the country just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's in Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills, stopping at every bush, like we were gonna buy it.
Well, if the secondhand man's really serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris, all right? Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's why I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know?
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me once in your life you want to go see a place where they don't speak English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to skip a few hours, but first, we want a little more information about the town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So, I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to sketch in a few details of our past history here. Is Professor Willard here? May I introduce Professor Willard of our state university? A few brief notes, thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners. Let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pleistocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in the world. We're very proud of that. The shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shale. And a few sandstone outcroppings, that's all more recent, 200, 300 million years old. Some highly interesting fossils have been found, I may say, unique fossils, about 2 miles out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. These can be seen at the museum in our university at any time. That is, at any reasonable time. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation, mean precipitation, etc.?
Afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a few words on the history of man here.
Ooh, yes, anthropological data. Early Amerindian stock, Cotahatchee tribes, no evidence before the 10th century of this era, now entirely disappeared. Possible traces in 3 families. Migration towards the end of the 17th century of English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock, for the most part, since then some Slav and Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor Willard?
Within town limits, the population is 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor.
Oh yes, indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, for a total of 3,146. Mortality and birth rates constant. By McPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Thank you very much, Professor. We are all very much obliged to you, I'm sure.
Not at all, sir. Not at all.
This way. And thank you again. Now for the political and social report. Editor Webb. Oh, Mr. Webb?
He'll be here in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles! Everybody's waiting!
Mr. Webb is publisher and editor of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know?
Well, I don't have to tell you, we're here run by a board of selectmen. All males vote by the age of 21, women vote indirect. We are lower middle class, sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we are 86% Republicans, 6% Democrats, and 4% Socialists. Religiously, we are 85% Protestants, 12% Catholics, the rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Barely town, if you ask me. A little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller. But our young people seem to like it here well enough. 90% of them graduating from high school settle down right here, even when they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Editor Webb anything about the town?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you'd call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet down at Ellery Greenhouse Stable in Hollowsome. We've got one of town drunks, but they're always having remorse every time Evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the home here, except for in the medicine chest. Right good for a snake bite, you know? Always was.
Is there no one in town?
Come forward, will you? Where we can all hear you.
Is there no one in town?
What were you saying?
Is there no one in town aware of social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh yes, terrible thing. Seems like they spend most of their time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. Seems like we're hunting like everybody else for a way the diligent and sensible can rise to the top and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those who can't help themselves, and those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Oh, Mr. Webb? Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. None in the sense you mean. Come to think of it, there's some girls who play the piano for high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, there ain't much culture. But maybe this is the place to tell you we got a lot of pleasures of a kind. We watch the sun coming over the mountain in the morning, and we notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them, and we watch the change in seasons. Yes, everybody knows about them. But those other things, you're right, ma'am, there ain't much. Robinson's Crusoe in the Bible, and Handel's Largo. We all know that, and Whistler's Mother. Those about as far as we go.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners, and the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town, a buzzing and a humming from the school buildings, only a few buggies on Main Street, the horses dozing at the hitching posts. You all remember what it's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office, tapping people and making them say, ah. Mr. Webb's cutting his lawn over there. One man at 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. No, sir, it's later than I thought. There are the children coming home from school already.
I can't, Louis. I've got to go home and help my mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Oh, Papa, you're terrible. One minute you tell me to stand up straight, the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, never got a kiss from such a great lady before.
Excuse me, Miss Forrest.
Go out and play in the fields, young man. You got no business playing ball out on Main Street.
Awfully sorry, Miss Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made an awfully fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Cochran asked me to make a speech about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I've worked an awful long time with both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head nights when you're doing homework over in your room.
Why, can you?
Yeah, you certainly stick to it. I don't see how you can sit still that long. I guess you really like school.
Well, I always feel it's something you have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think? We might work out a kind of telegraph from my window to yours? And every once in a while, you can give me a kind of hint or two about those algebra problems. A hint, Emily, a hint, not the answers.
Well, I think a hint is allowed. So, George, if you get stuck, you whistle to me, and I'll give some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright. I guess.
I just figure it's the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer, and my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm. If I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, I better get going to the baseball field. Thanks for the talk, Emily. Good afternoon, Miss Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come help me string these beans for the winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old would George be?
I don't know.
Let's see. He must be almost 16.
Mama! I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm gonna make speeches all my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try and get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, can I ask you a question? Serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously? Will you?
Of course, I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Oh, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I never heard of such foolishness.
Oh, Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Yes, I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town next to Mamie Cartwright.
But Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get somebody? To get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come along now and bring that bowl with you.
Oh, Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you. That'll do. We'll have to interrupt again here. Thank you, Miss Webb. Thank you, Emily. There's there's some more things you want to explore about this town. I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have just begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say. And they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, they're putting in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellow have found a way of painting all that reading matter with a glue, a silica glue that'll make it keep 2,000 years. We're putting in a Bible, the Constitution of the United States, and the copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and all we know about them is the name of the kings and some copies of wheat contracts, and contracts for the sale of slaves. Yet every night, all those families sat down to supper, and the father came home from his work, and the smoke went up the chimney. Same as here. And even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of people is what we could piece together out of the joking poems and comedies they wrote for the theater back then. So, I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, and the people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindenberg flight. See what I mean? So, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, and in our marrying, and in our living, and in our dying. Well, good deal of time's gone by. It's evening. You can hear choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. All the children are at home doing their schoolwork. The days run down like a tired clock.
Now remember, music comes into the world to bring joy. Softer. Softer! Get it out of your heads that music's only good when it's loud. You can leave loudless to the Methodist. You couldn't even beat him if you tried. Now again, tenors.
Emily!
Hello.
Hello.
I can't work at all. The moonlight's so terrible.
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third!
Why, yes, George. That's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it, Emily. Can you give me a kind of hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer's in yards.
In yards? What do you mean?
In square yards?
Oh, square yards.
Yes, George, don't you see?
Yeah.
In square yards of wallpaper?
Oh, wallpaper! I see now. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. My, the moonlight's so terrible, and choir practice going on. I bet if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way to Contacook. Hear it?
Mm-hmm. What do you know?
Well, I guess I'd better go back and try to work.
Good night, Emily. And thanks.
Good night, George.
Now remember, no, before I forget it, who can make it to Jane Trowbridge's next week? Next Tuesday afternoon. Show your hands! That'll be fine. That'll be right nice. We'll do the same music that we did at Jane Trowbridge's last month, at Hersey. Now let's do Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Languid. It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk.
Oh, George, can you come down a minute?
Yes, Pa?
yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
I'm 16, almost 17.
What do you want to do after school's over?
Like, you know, Pop, I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing, will you, to get up early to milk and feed the stock, and you'll be able to hoe and hay all day?
Sure I will. What do you mean, Pop?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. What do you think it was? It was your mother chopping wood. There you see your mother getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and still she has to go into the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she got tired of asking you. She decided it was easier to do it herself. And you eat her meals, and you put on the clothes she keeps nice for you, and you run off to play baseball, like she's some hired girl that will keep around the house, but we don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief, son. George, I decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, and because that's a gift you give to her, but because you're getting older. And I imagine you must find a lot of things to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Let's see. Tomorrow is payday. You can count on it. Rebecca ought to feel like she has some more too. I wonder what could happen to your mother. Choir practice was never as late as this before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't know why she's in that old choir. She hasn't had any more voice than an old crow, transferring around the streets at this hour of the night. About time you retired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Good night, Mr. Foster. I'll tell Mr. West. I know he wants to put it in the paper. My, it's late. Good night, Irma.
Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Myrtle Web, would you look at that moon? Potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those others, but it really is the worst scandal that ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Stimson.
Now, Luella.
But Julia, to have the organist of a church drink and drunk year after year, you know he was drunk tonight.
Now, Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the troubles he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows. Dr. Ferguson keeps him up there in that position, and the best thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it. It's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen anywhere near as often. My, I hate to go to bed on a night like this. I'd better hurry. Those children will be sitting up till all hours. Good night, Luella. Good night, Julie.
Can you get home safe, Luella?
Oh, it's as bright as day. You can see Mr. Soames scowling at the window now. You'd think we'd been to a dance the women folk carry on. Good night, Julia.
Good night, Luella. Well, we had a real good time.
You're late enough.
Hey, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you stopping at the corner to gossip with a lot of hens.
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come on and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. Isn't that wonderful? What did you do all that time I was away?
Oh, I read as usual. What were the girls gossiping about tonight?
Believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How will that end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I guess I know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anybody in this town. Some people just ain't made for a small town life. I don't know how it'll end, but there's nothing we could do but just leave it alone. Come on, get it.
No, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about?
Well, I believe it's my duty to make plans for you to get a real prestige change. And if I get that legacy, well, I'm going to insist upon it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Come on, Julia. It's getting late. First thing you'll know is you'll catch a cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I reckon you have your wood chopped for a while anyway. No. Start getting upstairs.
Oh dear, there's always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild locks her front door each night. All of those people in that part of town do.
They're all getting cityfied. That's the trouble with them. We got nothing fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca! There's only room for one at this window. Let's spoil everything.
Well, let me just look a minute.
Get your own damn window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, you know what I think, do you? I think the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and then there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer and nearer, the people that stay up all night on the telescopes looking at it would see about it, then they'd tell about it, and then it'd be in all the papers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
9:30. Most of the lights are out. No, there's Constable Ward trying a few doors on Main Street. And there's Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening, Constable.
Evening, Mr. Webb.
By the moon.
Yup.
All quiet tonight?
Simon Stimson's roamed around a little. Just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him, so I looked the other way. There he is now.
Good evening, Simon. Town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Yes. Good evening. Most of the town has settled down for the night. I think we ought to do the same. Can I walk away with you? Good night.
I don't know how that's going to end, Mr. Webb.
He's seen a peck of trouble, one thing after another. Oh, Constable, if you see my boy smoking any cigarettes, give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you.
I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Leastways, not more than 2 or 3 a year.
I hope not. Well, good night, Constable.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know, I just can't sleep. The moonlight's so wonderful. And the smell from Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope, can you smell it?
Yes. Haven't any troubles in your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, enjoy yourself, but don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa. George, I never told you about that letter Jane Crowfoot got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope, the address was like this. It said, Jane Crowfoot, the Crowfoot Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, the United States of America.
What's funny about that?
But wait, you didn't let me finish. The United States of America, continent of North America, the Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
What do you know?
And the postman bought it just the same.
What do you know?
That's all for Act 1, friends. You can go to the lobby. There are some snacks and some water, all individually wrapped for COVID safety. All sold by the class of 2022. sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rains have brought down some of the dirt. Some babies who weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences, and a number of people who thought they were right young and spry have noticed that they can't bound up the flight of stairs like they used to, without their hearts fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Yes, the mountains got thin away in fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water went by the mill, and here and there, a new home was set up under a roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? Most everybody climbs into their graves married. The first act is called the daily life. The second act is called love and marriage. There's a third act coming after this. I reckon you can guess what that's about. So, it's 3 years later. It's 1904. It's July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. As soon as they've passed their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, they suddenly feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Miss Gibbs' garden and Miss Webb's here, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines, drenched. All yesterday over there on Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown along. May begin again at any minute. You can hear the 5:45 for Boston. And here comes Miss Gibbs and Miss Webb, come down to make breakfast just as though it were an ordinary day. I don't need to point out to the women in my audience that those ladies they see before them, both of them have cooked 3 meals a day. One of them for 20 years, the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They brought up 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like what one of those Middle Western poets said. You've got to love life to have life, and to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle. Here comes Hal Newsom, delivering the note. And there's Cy Kroll, delivering the papers like his brother before him.
Morning, Cy.
Howie, you mean? Morning, Seth. Anything in the papers out to know?
Nothing much, except we're losing about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had, George Gibbs.
Reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases too.
Yep, mighty fine ball player. Oh, Bessie. I guess I could stop and talk about mine too.
I don't see how we could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Can't tell, Sally. Never had no talent that way. You're up early, Constable.
Seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. River's been rising all night.
Sal Kroll here is all worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir, that's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player side. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name of Hank Todd, went down to Maine and become a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how does the weather look to you?
Oh, tain't bad. Think maybe it'll clear up for good.
Good morning, Howie. Do you think it's going to rain again?
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Rain's so heavy, I think maybe it'll clear up for good.
Certainly hope it will.
How much did you want?
Oh, Howie, I'm going to have a house full of relations. You only 3 milk and 2 cream.
My wife told me to tell you that we hope they'll both be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. No, they will.
Thanks a lot, Howie. Tell your wife I hope she makes it to the wedding.
Oh, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Morning, Mrs. Webb.
Good morning, Mr. Newsom. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, and 2 of cream.
Will it start raining again, Mr. Newsom?
Well, I was just saying to Mrs. Gibbs is how it may lighten up. Mrs. Newsom told me to tell you that we hope they'll both be very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Newsom. I'm counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Oh, we'll be sure to get there. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Hey, Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
groom's up shaving himself, only there are an awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then he says, "I do" to the mirror, but it don't sound convincing to me.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how we'll get along. Arranged his clothes and seen to it he's put warm things on. Frank, they're too young. Emily won't think of such things. Look, I just did them a cold within a week.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Don't you start that now, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest young fella in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd make a mistake for sure. And when I saw you coming down that aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I've ever seen. But the only trouble was, I've never seen you before. There I was in the Congregational Church, marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are.
They have a lot of trouble, I suppose.
Here, I made you something.
Julia's French toast!
It ain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of hours struck off.
Yes, I get a shock every time I think of George setting out to be a family man. That great gangling thing. I tell you, Julia, there's nothing more terrifying in the world as a son. The relation of a father and son is the darnest, awkwardest.
Mother and daughter's no picnic either, let me tell you.
They have a lot of troubles, I suppose. That's none of our business. Everybody has a right to their own troubles.
Yes, people are meant to go through life two by two. It ain't natural to be lonesome.
Julia, do you know one of the things I was afraid of when I married you?
Oh, go along with you!
I was afraid we wouldn't have material for conversation more than less just a few weeks. I was afraid we'd run out and eat our meals in silence. That's a fact. Well, you and I have been conversing for 20 years now, without any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. Tain't very choice, but I always find something to talk about. Did you hear Rebecca stirring about upstairs?
No. Only a day of the year Rebecca hasn't been managing everybody's business up there. She's hiding in her room. I've gotten the impression she's crying.
Lord's sake, this has got to stop. Rebecca! Rebecca! Come and get your breakfast!
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours left to live.
Frank Gibbs, where are you going?
Just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Now, George, you put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents. You don't step out of this house without you're prepared for it.
It's just a step.
You'll catch a death of a cold and go all through the surface.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers. But while you're in my house, you'll live wisely, thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 a.m. Here, take this cup of coffee first.
Be back in a minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
Goodness, you frightened me.
No, George, you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Why not?
George, you know as well as I do, the groom can't see his bride on his wedding day, not until he sees her in church.
That's just a superstition. Morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George, and you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
She hasn't woken up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep?
No wonder. We were up till all hours sewing and packing. Now I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down here a minute with Mr. Webb and drink that cup of coffee, and I'll go upstairs and see if she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
Oh, fine. I'm fine. Mr. Webb, what kind of sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, you see, on her wedding morning, a girl's mind apt to be full of clothes, and one thing and another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yes, I never thought of that.
Girl's actually might nervous on her wedding day.
I wish a fellow could get married without all this marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has felt that way about it, but it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who've built up weddings, my boy. For a while now, they have it all on their own. A man looks pretty small at a wedding with all those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
But you believe in it, right, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Don't you misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. And don't you forget that.
Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, I'd been to college, and I'd taken a little time to get settled. But Mrs. Webb, oh, she wasn't much older than what Emily is. Age hasn't much to do with it, George, not compared with other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other night about some advice my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said. Charles, start out early showing who's boss, he said. Best thing to do is to give in order, even when it don't make sense, he said. Just so she'll learn how to obey. And if anything about your wife irritates you, her conversation or anything, get up and leave the house. That will make it clear to her, he said. And yes, never, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Oh, I don't think I could,
So
Mr.
I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George. Never ask for advice on personal matters. George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke's never been interested, but I always thought
came
that.
into my office the other day on the final system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. I'm thinking of beginning a little ways in the backyard and bring the incubator in the cellar.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two would be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boy some good advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone with him.
George, Emily's got to come downstairs and have her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye!
Bye.
Myrtle, I guess you don't know about that older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the caveman, no bridegroom should lay eyes on his father-in-law on the day of the wedding, or near it. Now, remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Now, I'm going to have to interrupt again here. You see, we want to know how all this began. This wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like this begin. You know how it is. You're 21 or 22, then whoosh, you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years, and that white-haired lady by your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are now going to show you the first conversation they had when they first knew that, as the saying goes, they were meant for one another. But before they do it, I want you to try and remember what it was like to have been very young, and especially the days when you were first in love, when you're like a person sleepwalking, and you didn't quite see the street you were in, and you didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You're just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that, please? Now, they'll be coming out of high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class, and as it's June, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily's just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't need to tell you how important that is. Yup, there they are coming down Main Street now.
I can't, Louise. I've got to go home. Oh, Ernestine! Ernestine! Can you come over tonight and do Latin? Oh, isn't that Cicero the worst? Just tell your mother you have to. Goodbye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Can I carry your books home for you, Emily?
Why, thank you. It isn't far.
Excuse me a minute, Emily. Say, Bob, if we're a little late, start practicing anyway. Give Herb some long high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie. Emily, I'm awfully glad you were elected, too.
Thank you.
Why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, since you asked, I might as well say right out, George. Goodbye, Mrs. Cooperroad.
Goodbye, Mrs. Cobra. What? What is it?
I don't like the whole change that's come over you the past year. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I've got to tell the truth and shame the devil.
Change? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot, and I used to watch you as you did everything. Because we've been friends so long, and suddenly we begin spending our time at baseball, and you never stop to speak to anybody. I always expect a man to be perfect. And I think he should be.
Oh, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is. And as far as I can see, your father is. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I feel it's the other way around. That men aren't naturally good. But girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be as perfect as a man, because we girls are more nervous. Now, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily!
Now I can see it's not the truth at all. And suddenly, I feel it isn't important anyway.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda? Or something before you go home?
Why,
Thank you. I would.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What'll you have? Why, Emily Webb? What have you been crying about?
She just got an awful scare. Almost got ran over by that hardware store wagon. Everyone says that Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well, now, you take a drink of water, Emily. You look all shook up. I tell you, you gotta look both ways before crossing Main Street these days. Gets worse every year. What'll you have?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
No, Emily, have a strawberry ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking to you. State inspector was in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in those automobiles. I tell you, the best thing to do is just stay home. Why, I remember when a dog could go to sleep all day in the middle of Main Street, and nothing come along to disturb him. There they are. Enjoy, Yes, Miss Ellis, what can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
No, don't think of that. We're celebrating our election. And then, do you know what else I'm celebrating, Emily?
No.
I'm celebrating because I got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
Oh, George, please don't think of that. I don't know what made me say it.
No, Emily, you stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did. But you'll see, I'm going to change so quick, you bet I'm going to change. And Emily, can I ask you a favor?
What?
Emily, if I go away to State Agriculture College next year, will you write me a letter every once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems being away 3 years, you get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners is a very important place when you think of all New Hampshire. But I think it's a very nice town.
The day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here, Emily. And I know that's true.
I'll try to make my letters interesting.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to agriculture school, be a good farmer.
Why, George?
Yeah, and some of them say it's even a waste of time. You can get all those things out of the pamphlets the government sends out. And my Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about ready for me to start taking over the farm tomorrow, if I could.
Why?
And like you said, being gone all that time in other places, meeting other people, gosh, anything like that can happen. I don't want to go away. I guess new people aren't any better than old ones. I'll bet they almost never are. And Emily, I feel you're as good a friend as I got. That's what I feel.
But, George, maybe it's very important you go to school and learn about all that cattle judging and soils and those things. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm gonna make up my mind right now. I won't go. Tell Pa about it tonight.
But George, I don't know why you have to make a decision right now. I mean, it's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault, my character. What you said was right, but there was one thing wrong in it. And that was when you said, I wasn't noticing people. And you, for instance, or you say, I wasn't noticing. You say, you were watching me when I did everything. I was doing the same about you all the time. Why, sure, I always thought of you as one of the chief people I thought about. I always made sure where you were on the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you. got in the way. Yesterday I stood over against the wall waiting for you, and you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
Why, George, life's awful funny. How could I have known that? What?
Listen,
I
Emily,
thought...
I'm going to tell you right now why I'm not going to agriculture school. I think when you found a person you're very fond of, I mean, a person that's fond of you, I think when you find someone who's interested enough to like you for your character, why, I think that's just as important as college is, and even more so.
I think it's awfully important, too.
Emily, if I can make a big improvement, change, would you be, could you be...
I am now. I always have been.
I guess this is an important talk we've been having.
Yes. Yes.
I'll get ready to walk you home in a minute. Mr. Morgan, I'll have to go home and get you the money to pay for this.
What's that? George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Yeah, but Mr. Morgan, I have my reasons. Here, my silver watch. You can keep it until I come back with the money.
That's all right. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George. Not a day over. Got all over your shock, Emily?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of facts that go on during a wedding. We can't get them all to one wedding, naturally, and especially not to a wedding in Grover's Corners, where they're often played in short. In this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few more things about it. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I guess, like Miss Gibbs said 2 minutes ago, people were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding, but people are so put together that even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion way down deep in people's minds, and we thought that ought to be in our play too. The real hero of the scene isn't on the stage at all. It's like what one of those European fellas said. Every child born into the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that she's interested in quantity. But I think she's interested in quality, too. That is why I am in the ministry. And don't forget about all the other witnesses at this wedding. The ancestors. Millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2. Millions of them. Well, that was my sermon. 'Twa'n't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. They came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily, eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years. And now she's going off to eat it in someone else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she said to me, I can't eat another mouthful. And she put her head down on the table, and she
He looks scared to death.
Yo, don't look so innocent, you old geezer.
We know what you're thinking. Don't disgrace the team, big boy.
Woo,
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 woo.
all right, that'll do, that's enough. There used to be an awful lot of that kind of thing in weddings in the old days. Rome, and later. We're more civilized now, so they say.
George? George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Wait, George, you wanted it.
No, Ma, listen.
No, George, you're a man now.
Just listen, Ma, for the last time.
George, anyone should hear you now. I'm ashamed of you.
Where's Emily?
George, you gave me such a turn.
Cheer up, Ma, I'm getting married.
Catch my breath a minute.
Now you save every Thursday night. Every Thursday night, me and Emily are coming for dinner. Ma, why are you crying? Gotta get ready for this.
I've never felt more alone in my whole life. And George over there, looking so... I hate him! I wish I were dead. Papa! Papa!
Emily, now don't get upset.
But Papa, I don't want to get married.
Everything's all right.
But Papa, why can't I stay for a while just as I am? Let's go away.
No, Emily. Now stop and think for a minute.
But Papa, don't you remember you used to say, all the time you used to say, all the time, that I was your girl. There must be lots of places we can go. I could work for you. I could keep house.
You mustn't think of such things. You're just nervous. George, will you come here a minute? Why, you're marrying the best young fellow in the world. George is a fine fellow.
But Papa...
George, I'm giving away my daughter to you. Do you think you can take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to try. Emily, I'm gonna do my best. I love you. And I need you.
If you love me, help me. All I want is for someone to love me.
Emily, I will. I'm gonna try.
And I mean forever, you hear me? Forever and ever.
Come, now you know everything will be all right. Come quick.
George, take this woman, Emily, to be your lawful wedded wife, to have
Perfectly lovely wedding! Loveliest wedding I ever saw! Oh, I do love a good wedding, don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do.
And do you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your lawful wedded husband.
Don't know what I've been to such a nice wedding, but I always cry. Don't know why it is, but I always cry. I just like to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
I've married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. M marries N. Millions of them. The cabin, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting. Well, let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March.
Aren't they a lovely couple? I'm sure they'll be happy. As I always say, happiness, that's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
That's all, the second act, folks. 10 minutes intermission. Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer. Farmers coming into town in Fords. Everybody locks their house doors now at night. Ain't been any burglars in town yet. Everybody's heard of them. You'd be surprised though. On the whole, things don't change much around here. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop, a windy hilltop. Lots of sky, lots of clouds, often lots of sun, moon, and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon, you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are, up by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And way up, if you've got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock, right here. And all these towns that lie around it. Jaffrey, and East Jaffrey, and Peterborough, and Dublin, and there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. Yes, beautiful spot up here. Mount Laurel, lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Woodlawn or Brooklyn, and they might pass the same time here in New Hampshire. Over there, the old stones, 1670, 1680. Strong-minded people that come a long way to be independent. Summer people walk around there, laughing at the funny words on the tombstones. It don't do any harm. And genealogists come up from Boston, get paid by city people for looking up their ancestors. They want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution and of the Mayflower. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Over there are some Civil War veterans, iron flags on their graves. New Hampshire boys had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew is the name, friend. The United States of America. United States of America. And they went and died about it. This here's the new part of the cemetery. Here's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs. And let me see. Here's Mr. Stimson, organist of the Congregational Church, and Miss Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so. You remember? Oh, and a lot of others. And Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst while on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow has sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill. We all know how it is. And then time, sunny days, rainy days, and snow. We're all glad they're in a beautiful place. And we're coming up here ourselves when our fit's over. Now, there's something we all know. But we don't take them out and look at them very often. There's something eternal about every human being. And it ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't earth, and it ain't even the stars. Everybody knows in their bones that something is eternal, and that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years. And yet, you'd be surprised that people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. You know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth. And the ambitions they had, and the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get weaned away from earth. That's the way I put it. Weaned away. All the earth part of them burns away, burns out, and all that time, they slowly get indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something they feel's coming. Something important and great. Aren't they waiting for the eternal part of them to come out clear? Some of the things they are going to say, maybe it'll hurt your
afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you?
I'm Samantha Craig.
Gracious sakes alive. Of all people, I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, I've been away over 12 years. I'm in business out in Buffalo now, Joe, but I was in the East when I got news of my cousin's death. So I thought I'd combine things a little and come and see the old home. You look well.
Yes, yes, can't complain. Very sad our journey today, Sam.
Yes.
Yes, I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today. My son's supervising at the home.
Miss McCarty. I used to do chores for her after school. She had the lumbago.
Yes, we brought Mrs. McCarty here a number of years ago now.
Why, this is my Aunt Julia. I've forgotten that she... Of course, of course.
Yes, Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago, around this time. And today's a pretty bad blow for him too.
That's my sister Carrie's girl. Samantha. Samantha Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Do they choose their own verses much, Joe?
No, not usual. Mostly the bereaved pick a verse.
That doesn't sound like my Aunt Julia. Aren't many of those Hersey sisters left now? Are there? Let me see now. Where are... I wanted to take a look at my father's and mother's.
Over there by the Craigs, Avenue F.
He was organist at church, wasn't he? Drank a lot, we used to say.
Nobody was supposed to know about it. Perhaps he'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know?
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got around. He chose his very own epitaph, you know? You can see it there. It ain't a verse exactly.
Why, it's just a few notes of music. What is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was wrote up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, didn't you know? Had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. There's a little boy, about 4 years old.
So the grave is going to be over there?
Yes, there ain't much room over there by the Gibbses. They're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over by Avenue B. You'll excuse me now. I see they're coming.
Who is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Well, I declare, the road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth. I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life awful? And wonderful.
Wonderful, was it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Oh, wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poems at graduation speeches. Oh, she was one of the brightest girls to ever graduate from high school. I'd heard Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on their farm right before I died. Perfectly lovely farm. It's on the same road we lived on.
seems thousands and thousands of years since Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Stimson?
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs, George and I have made that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and the great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought that out of money you left us. I did? Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs? The legacy you left us? Why, it was over $350. Yes. Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs. Or sinks below a certain mark they got there, it's fine. It won't be the same to George without one. But it's a lovely farm. A lot of people don't understand, do they? No, dear, not very much. They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. Mother Gibbs, we have Ford too. Never gives any trouble. I don't drive though. My boy spent the day in McCarty's. Oh, Mrs. McCarty, my boy spent the day at your house. Is he? Yes, he loves it there. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away? Of being one of them? How long does it... Dear, just wait and be patient. I know. Look, they're finished. They're going. Look, Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? Father Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and in the dark life persons are. Look at him. I loved him so. From morning till night, that's all they are. Trouble.
Little cooler than it was. Yes, it is. That rain's cooled off a little.
Those northeast winds always do the same thing.
Don't they? If it isn't a rain, it's wind for days.
But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there again into living. I feel it. I know it. Like just then for a minute, I was thinking of the farm, and for a minute I was there, and my baby was on my lap as plain as day. Yes, of course you can. I can go back there and live all those days over again. Why not? All I can say is, Emily, don't. But it's true, isn't it? I can go back there again.
Yes, some have tried, but they soon come back here.
Don't do it, Emily. Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day I first knew I loved George. Why should I
watch yourself living in.
Yes?
And as you watch it, you see the thing that they, down there, never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that and think of only what is ahead. And be ready for what is ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? It's all I know. It's all I had.
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyways.
No! Choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day of your life. It will be important enough.
Then it can't be since I was married. Or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right. February 11th, 1899. A Tuesday. Do you want any special time of day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
Then we'll begin at dawn. You remember it had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before, and they'd begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
There's Main Street. And there's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it. There's the livery stable.
Yes, this is 1899. This is 14 years ago.
That's the town I knew as a little girl. And look, there's the old white fence that used to appear on my house. I'd forgotten that. I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes, your mother will be downstairs in a minute to make breakfast.
Will she?
And you remember your father had been away for several days. He came back on the early morning train.
No.
He'd been back to his college to make a speech in Western New York at Clinton.
Look, there's Howie Newsom. There's our policeman. But he's dead. He died.
Morning, Constable.
Morning, Howie.
You're up early.
I was rescuing a party. Darn near froze to death down by Polish Town Dar. Got drunk and landed in snowdrifts. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
Why, there's Joe Kroll.
Good morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Children! Wally, Emily, time to get up! Mama, I'm here! Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mom was ever that young. You can come and dress by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Good morning, Mr. Newsom. Oh, it's cold.
10 below by my barn.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up. Mama, I can't find my new hairpin anywhere. Just open your eyes here, that's all. I laid it out pretty special on the dresser there. If you were a snake, it would bite you. Yes. Yes.
Good morning, Constable.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Yes, just been back to my old college in New York State. Been any trouble here?
Well, I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Darn near froze to death he was.
You was in the paper.
Twat much.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
How did it go, Charles?
Oh, fine, I guess. Told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Yes, can't think of anything that's happened special. Been right cold. Howie Newsom says it's 10 below over to his barn.
Yes, well, it's colder than Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off. It ain't Christian. Paper had any mistakes in it.
None that I noticed. Coffee's ready when he wants it. Charles, don't forget, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Yes, I've got something right here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Don't interrupt her now, Charles. You can see her at breakfast. She's slow enough as it is. Hurry up, children. It's 7 o'clock. No, I don't want to call you again.
I can't. They're so young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I love you all, everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Morning, Mama.
Well now, dear. Very happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. There's some surprises waiting for you on the table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't. I can't.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. That in the blue paper is from my Aunt Carrie, and I reckon you can guess who brought the postcard album. I found it on the doorstep when I brought in the milk. George Gibbs. Must have come over in the cold pretty early. Right nice of him.
Oh, George, I'd forgotten that.
Chew that bacon good and slow. It'll help keep you warm on a cold day.
Mama, just look at me 1 minute as if you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother, Mama. I married George Gibbs, Mama. Wally's dead too. He died in a camping trip to North Conway and we felt just terrible about it. Don't you remember? But just for a moment now, we're all together. Just for a moment now, we're all happy. Let's look at one another.
That in the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear now, and I thought you would like it.
And this is from you. Why, it's just lovely. And it's just what I wanted. It's beautiful.
Well, I hope you'd like it. Hunts it all over. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send all the way to Boston. Wally has something for you, too. He made it in manual training class, and he's very proud of it. Be sure you make a big fuss about it. Your father has a surprise for you, too. Don't know what it is for myself. Shh, here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't go on. It all goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. So all that was going on. We never realized. Take me back. Up the hill. To my grave. First, one would look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama. Papa. Clocks ticking. Mama's sunflowers. New iron dresses. Hot baths. Fruit. Coffee. Sleeping. Waking up. Homer. You're too wonderful for anybody to realize it. Do any human beings ever realize life when they live it? Every minute.
Oh. The saints and poets, maybe. They do so.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
No. That's all human beings are. Just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up. Stars are out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson. I should have listened to them.
Yes, now you know. Now you know! That's what it was to be alive. To move about in a cloud of ignorance. To go up and down, trampling on the feelings of those about you. Spend and waste time as though you had a million years. To always be at the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. Yes, now you know. That's what it was to be alive. Ignorance and blindness.
Simon Stimson, that ain't the whole truth, and you know it. Emily, look. That star. I forget its name.
My boy Joel was a sailor. Knew 'em all. He'd sit on porch evenings and tell 'em all by name. Yes, sir, wonderful. The star's mighty good company.
Yes, yes, yes it is.
Here's one of them coming.
That's funny. Tain't no time for one of them to be here.
Mother Gibbs, it's George. Shh, dear, just rest yourself. It's George.
And my boy Joel, who knew the stars, he'd say that it took millions of years for that speck of light to get to the earth. Don't seem like a body could believe it, but that's what he said. Millions of years.
Goodness, that ain't no way to behave. Ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs? Yes, Emily.
They don't understand, do they?
No, dear. They don't understand.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins, down at the depot, just watched the Albany train go by, and at the livery stable, somebody's sitting up late and talking. Yes, it's clearing up. There are the stars, doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think that there are no living beings up there, just chalk or fire. Only this one is straining away all the time, just to make something of itself. The strain's so bad that every 16 hours, everybody lies down, gets a rest. It's 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. You get a good rest too. Good night.